Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, thanks everyone for coming out. This is it, huh? This is the ICOI Young Professionals Club, right? So by the end of today, I'm supposed to get everyone married. Is that what's happening here? Is that the goal here? Okay, inshallah, we'll get it done. All right, no, alhamdulillah. This is such a beautiful environment that you guys have here, and I'll tell you a little bit about my involvement with ICOI in a little bit as well. But it's beautiful that you guys have an environment that you guys can all get together in a halal environment where you can get together and make friends and do activities. I lurk, honestly. I see the Instagram, and I'm honestly a little envious. We didn't have this when I was younger, and mashallah, I hope that more and more of you come out and bring your friends out to these events, because this is something, and I'll go over my life a little bit, but I will encourage you a few things. One is to get married early, and talk about that. I'm sure everyone tells you that anyway. But anyway, so the title of my talk today is Money Talks. My name is Asim Khan, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm talking about today lessons on building companies, investing, failing, and starting over again. And also, I'm going to tie in some my experience with Islamic leadership and how you guys should, and ladies and sisters should get involved if you're not already, and we'll take it from there. I think Abdullah already went over a little bit about me here. There's some stuff here, 25 years of experience running a e-commerce multi-brand organization, import-export. We built from scratch. I say we because it's my partner is my wife, and it was quite a long road, and that's just the marriage. I'm just kidding. She would laugh at that. No, it's a long road. So there's gonna be a lot of that. Yeah, and before that, I was working at Microsoft for a little bit, and then I worked for one of the big four consulting firms. Are you guys familiar with consulting? Anyone here familiar? Anyone work in consulting here? Yes, you do. You're not familiar. You're familiar, okay. But you guys are some. You work. Where do you work? MetLife, okay, but you're familiar with consulting, right? Deloitte and all those things, right? So I work for one of those guys, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Currently, after an exit from our company, I'm now and have been a private investor with my own company, Hayes Holdings, where we do a variety of different investing strategies, ranging from boring things like rental properties, flips, development, equities, and diversified private holdings. I also specialize in talking about retirement and tax strategy. I'm not an accountant, but I know enough accounting to be dangerous. Any accountants here? CPAs? Finance people? No? Okay, we'll get to know each other. There's enough people to get to know each other, okay. Are you guys excited about this? We're talking about money, right? Excited? Yeah? Yeah. All right. She drove. Okay. Mashallah. Okay. And then I went to UCLA, go Bruins, and I did an econ degree there back in the day. Okay. Now a little bit about me. Irvine. Does anyone remember me from anything here? Did anyone grow up in Irvine? Who grew up in Irvine here? A lot. Huh? Yeah. Do you remember me? Okay. What do you remember about me? I was. Okay. I gave a lot of announcements. A lot of people know me as the announcement guy. Before Amin, I was long before Amin. Actually, I was the. I'll take the claim to fame for this. I was the first muaddin of ICOI. Actually, I will say that I was with my horrible voice. I did. I was the first muaddin. No, but we started out ICOI before this building. Before that building actually was made. I was alhamdulillah. I was lucky enough to be one of the good volunteers and friends of one of the founders, Allah yarhamahu, who passed away, Rauf Gajiani, and he got me involved with the Islamic Center of Irvine early on. And I served various positions at ICOI for about 10 years, including being the president for a few years, and various other roles they roped me into over here. But and I'll talk a little bit about how important it is to get involved in your masajid as well. I also, like Abdullah said, I MC various events. I fundraise and I help wherever I can. And one of the things I like to talk, and people seem to like to hear me. They keep bringing me back to these events, and I've done quite a few events for fundraising for ICY, New Horizon. Anyone graduate from New Horizon here? Any New Horizon people here? No New Horizon people. Okay, that's fine. Cool. You know what's funny? Mashallah, a lot of people moved here to this area. There were a lot of people who just were born and raised here, but a lot of people moved here. It's so great to see people that have actually came to this community from a far away. Do you guys actually, this group, do you guys actually are you guys Irvine living now, or do you guys come from far away, most of you? All over. That's so cool. That's really, really cool that people come here. I love the fact that ICOI is still a magnet for people to get together. One of the fun things I do is I am the founder of a Muslim surf club. I surf 3 days a week with a bunch of friends of mine. We have about 40 people in our surf club. We run an annual surf camp once a year, and we're in the water 3 days a week. I was in the water 2 days a week this weekend with a bunch of great Muslim brothers, and it's a beautiful thing to get out there. Southern California, mashallah, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with a beautiful weather, and I really highly encourage you guys to get out there and do outdoorsy things. You guys do? I seen you guys go to Big Bear and stuff like that, right? This group, yeah. Okay, cool. And I'm also a frequent flyer and points nerd. I do all that kind of stuff. So, okay, and I will display this afterwards as well. But if you would like to reach me, you can reach me at these places. I'm more than happy to help out in whatever way I can. And then quick disclaimer, like it says there, this is not financial advice, blah, blah, blah. I'm only giving you guys some education. That's about it. Okay? So don't, huh? I have a LinkedIn too, but I didn't put it in here. But you'll find me. I mean, Asim Khan, put in my company name, you'll find me. Okay. I should have put my LinkedIn here. Okay, so why this talk? Who likes money here? Yeah? You dunya chasers. Look at you guys. No, I'm just kidding. Mashallah, it's good. It's so important that this generation especially finds ways to make money, inshallah. And there's nothing wrong with making money. All of our Sahaba made money, our Prophet Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made money. There's nothing wrong with making money, okay? It's when you're wasting money that's a different story, okay? But a lot of us, I don't know, like you guys, we don't get finance classes in high school. We don't get entrepreneurship classes in high school. We don't get personal finance. When I was a kid, we did at least have econ. They taught us to balance a checkbook. That's about it. They didn't tell us more of the nuance. Even college, like unless you're taking most colleges don't even teach this kind of stuff. You have to learn this stuff on your own, which is a shame actually. And most Muslims learn finances through mistakes. I'm one of those people too, and I'm going to tell you some of the mistakes I made and some of the things I would have done, and that I've learned over the years as well. Many of us delay planning unless it's too late. I think we can all agree with that. And you guys, it's not too late for you guys. In fact, everything I tell you right now, please start now. Do people have, I'm sorry, I don't know the age range here. Are most people working right now in some capacity here? This is the working group, yeah? Okay, cool, good, excellent. So one of the reasons why this is so important for us is because our community needs strong leaders. We need leaders that are financially stable. By the time you get, from my old age, inshallah, you guys have a good command of your bank accounts and your retirement and all that kind of stuff, so that you can make real decisions and, inshallah, build institutions and, really do and fix and do the things that are important that a lot of our people who are oppressing us right now are doing. And we want to be able to be at the forefront of that. And I can see a lot of change there, and inshallah, you guys can make that change. And most importantly, the decisions you make today are going to quietly shape your next 30 years. And that's something that's really important. Don't discount that because things compound, and I'm going to go over that in a bit. Okay, next slide here. Okay, so my story real quick. Like I said before, I graduated from UCLA. I was so excited to be there, and I originally started out pre-med. I thought I was going to be a doctor. Then I worked in an oncology clinic for about a year, and I hated it. And much to my parents' chagrin, I left pre-med to pursue computer science and business. And I liked the business part of it a little bit more. So I worked very hard to. I think I was always a little bit entrepreneurial. When I was in college, it was kind of pre-internet. I'm that old, We didn't really. It was not pre-internet. We had internet, but it wasn't like we had like a billion websites back then. Websites were just starting, Google hadn't even begun yet. I think we were using Yahoo to search. There were like just these sites that are just starting out. Amazon was just selling books back then. That's how. And it wouldn't come overnight. Or even like by 4 p.m. Amazon would come like in a week from then. It was like it was a very odd time back then. But it was called the .com boom was about to happen, and I started out early on. Learning how to make web pages, and I'd go and I started my own consulting company in college. I'd call it Awesome Consulting because awesome, right? Awesome. And I was able to meet some attorneys that were practicing in the Beverly Hills area, and I was able to teach them, create websites for them, and kind of started my career there. And figured out a way to get a internship, and then eventually a little job at Microsoft. Worked there for about a year and a half, and then I moved on to Big Four Consulting, and then which is like a management consulting. And I taught myself a lot when I wasn't at school. Things I couldn't be taught, I would learn on nights and weekends whenever I had time. And it all started while I was still working. Okay, so building a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been working and building my business for about 25 years, which I exited last year. So when we were talking about this .com boom that happened, are you guys familiar with the .com boom? You understand what that is? Am I that old? Okay. So in the early 2000s, kind of like how AI is kind of frothy right now, a lot of companies were like, how AI is all the talk right now. Internet was all the talk back then. Just anything internet was like the valuations were crazy, and I had just started working at my consulting firm and not my consulting firm, at a consulting firm, a Big Four consulting firm, and all of my friends in the Bay Area were, in these .com companies, kind of like how, there's Anthropic now, there's, Gemini and all these companies, back then any .com was a big deal to work for, and back then I really tried my best to figure out, okay, what should I do with my work? And let me backtrack a little bit. I got married early. I met my wife in college, and I married her at 21 years old. So I was a little early, actually. My parents said, "Yep, let's do it," and her parents were down, and we got married. And luckily, I had a job, which was good, and we had the support of our parents, and it was great. She was going to college at the time while I was working, and one thing I really wanted to do was I wanted to start a business because working for a company had some you're constricted a little bit, and nothing wrong with working for a corporation. It's very important to have work and skills when you're younger. I worked for about 4 to 5 years professionally before I started, or while I was starting my company. But I felt capped in my growth. I wanted to expand. So I told my wife, hey, look, I think I can build an internet company. This is the new thing right now, but I have no idea what we should do. And this is where you talk to your friends, you talk to your family, you talk to people if you want to build a business, get some ideas, And she said, I really like planning our wedding, And so I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? She said, well, why don't we sell wedding favors and decorations online? And that's what we did. She went to downtown LA with my mother-in-law, Allah yarhamuha, she passed away, and she started buying from wholesale stores these little trinkets, and I created a website with her, and she would take the pictures, and I would create all the back end and all the coding and all that kind of stuff. And we were one of the first companies to sell wedding supplies online in 2001, and we kind of took that market by storm. But storm doesn't mean much because there weren't that many people buying wedding things online back then. People would call actually to place orders. It was really kind of funny, Eventually, people got used to putting their credit cards online. It was like a big deal to put your credit card online back then. But then one thing led to another, and we grew our business, and we started getting one order, a month, to one order a week, to one order a day, to one order an hour, to 10 orders in an hour, and then just kind of blew up, humble up. So we worked together, and we built a company, and eventually, we expanded over the last 25 years, multi-brand, multi-channel, and we exited last year, not in the best way that I'd like to have exited, but we were able to exit comfortably, alhamdulillah, and we're excited for what's next. So the reason why I bring this up is that the most important thing about that whole thing. Oh, I should backtrack a little bit. Why did I go full time on that business? So I was working at a big four consulting company. It was called Arthur Andersen. Anyone familiar with Arthur Andersen? Okay, so you guys are young, mashallah, that's good. Arthur Andersen was actually the largest accounting consulting company in the world in 2001. And alhamdulillah, I was able to work there and got a very, so what consulting is, you go to different companies and you solve problems for them. That's all there is to it, basically. Problems that they cannot solve or they don't want to solve, they outsource to smart people who are able to come over there and solve problems for them. And I was one of those people. So while I was building my business and working at this company, I was up for manager position back then, and but I was already, alhamdulillah, making 2 or 3 times as much with our company as I was doing at this consulting firm. Now, the consulting firm, if I stayed there, for 12 years or whatever, there's a path to partner and all that kind of stuff. But should I do that? That would seem to be the sure thing, or should I actually keep going with this company that sells wedding supplies online? I don't know where this would lead. So I made Salat al-Istikhara for the first time in my life. Are you guys familiar with Salat al-Istikhara? Okay. And it was one of those things where it's just you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you just put your head to the mat and you say, Allah, please help me make this decision. And in the morning, I just felt like this real inclination or urge to, just tell my boss I'm quitting. So I went to my boss and I said to him, hey, you know what? I'm going to quit and I'm going to, I started my own company. And so my boss, at that morning, something happened that was very unique. It was something called Enron. And you'll read in your economic history books what this was. Imagine imagine NVIDIA. Let's say NVIDIA, okay? Some news happened, let's say, about NVIDIA. It was called Enron back then. And I had no idea what this was. I didn't know what Enron was. And I told my boss, hey, I'm going to quit. And my boss said, what are you going to do? Sell wedding favors online? We're the biggest accounting consulting firm in the world. Why would you leave us to start your little piddly operation? Are you scared of this Enron thing? We're not going anywhere. We're the biggest. And the hubris was amazing to hear something like that from this guy. But I was like, yeah, I didn't know what Enron was, but I said, peace, I'm out, And then this happened. Enron, so the audit firm, the audit part of Arthur Andersen did some fraudulent business, and they did not audit properly the Enron books, and Enron stock fell. Imagine NVIDIA's stock falling from where it is now to zero. Yeah, that's what happened to Enron. It was like a huge company back then. And you can see here, this is the head of Arthur Andersen here, saying that, we knew nothing. But yeah, the largest accounting consulting firm in the world went bankrupt in 2001. And alhamdulillah, my business soared. It just kind of tells you, you put your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, things can happen. And this was one of those miraculous things that I would say that happened to me. And, I bear witness that nothing could have happened if it wasn't for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings here. Anyway, am I boring you guys? You guys with me here? We good? All right. I don't know. I'm talking a lot. This is a small group. We're going to do Q&A a little bit. Is this good, or do we rather just do Q&A? What's better for you guys? This is good? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. If you get bored, let me know. I am very easy to, it's fine. Okay. So going back to growing that business, we built a brand. We vertically integrated, which means basically once we started buying stuff from downtown and local domestic places, we decided, hey, you know what? We should make our own stuff. Why are we selling other people's stuff? So we flew to China and we met with a bunch. This is in 2005 or 2006. We met with a bunch of different suppliers and sourcers. It wasn't as easy as going on Alibaba or Temu. Back then, you actually had to fly there and actually meet people and learn a little Chinese, learn a little Cantonese, learn a little Mandarin, and make some deals. And we made some deals, and we would start bringing in container loads of wedding and gift supplies. We got into gifts, and we started selling to corporations and sold to Neiman Marcus and Nordstrom and a few of the Bloomingdale's as well. We built a company that we were selling a lot to these distributors. Anyway, after 25 years, we exited that after growing from that level. But one thing I learned along the way, and this is the most important thing, is that while I was doing all that, alhamdulillah, I surrounded myself with two important things. I made sure that I had a good accountant, and this is while you get older, you may not need an accountant right now, but I needed a good accountant and I needed a good attorney as well. And that's really important as you're growing a business. Especially your age, you probably know an account. It's always good to know your friends who happen to be these things, right? Because you can't pay when you're starting out real accountant and real attorney money. You know some brother, some sister who's probably an attorney, or they'll help you out. That's where you start out. Have that network. You should have an attorney, you should have an accountant, and you should have a few doctors that you know pretty well if you can. And I'm sure that you guys probably know some people in that kind of sphere. Really important to know. And so one thing I did was, while we were building the business, alhamdulillah, I was able to invest our income in the business as well, but I would take quite a bit of it, and via various tax friendly vehicles, I was able to invest that money. And over time, I invested, alhamdulillah, and it compounded over time, and I'll explain that in a bit. And this is what's going to be important for you guys as well. So when you invest money, it multiplies it, right? It's not, when you put in $100, it'll grow over time. It's not something that's just going to, I'm going to go over the compounding in a second. You want to invest your surplus, you want to eventually own assets, and you want to, be regular and consistent about it. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves when we do things consistently. And I would hope to say that investing in our dunya and eventually our akhirah is important as well. So please make sure you do things consistently and try your best to do so. Okay, so going a little forward here. So let's talk about investing. The most important thing I wanted to talk about personal finance, most importantly. I imagine you guys are interested in this, right? Personally. So everyone's in a different financial state, and I know when you're young, your state isn't that great a lot of times, you're just starting out, but be positive. You have a lot of time ahead of you. I tell them my son's 21 right now, and sometimes he gets a little anxious. I'm like, you got your whole life ahead of you to figure things out, and even finances, you have a lot of time to figure that out. Try to keep emergency funds 3 to 6 months at least, if you can, on hand in the bank somewhere, but everything else, try to invest it. If you can, invest automatically as well. You can open up an account at Schwab or Fidelity, whichever one your preference is. That's, I would say, have an account somewhere at some brokerage firm. And don't wait for extra money. Invest stuff that you can already afford to invest. Invest things that you are comfortable with letting it sit for a long time. Because that's where the growth really happens. Okay. Most important thing before we leave today, not leave today, but most important message I can tell for you guys is to start a Roth IRA. Roth IRA? Anyone? Roth IRA? Please start a Roth IRA, especially when you haven't. You can't do this once, inshallah, you earn more than like 150K a year or something like that, right? So if you're only and joint, I think it's 250 or something like that. If you are single, 150K a year and below, I believe you can do Roth IRA, and you can invest up to, I think it was in 2025, it was $7,000 a year out of your after tax. You can put into a Roth IRA. So do you know what a Roth IRA is? I know it sounds kind of weird, but everyone knows what a Roth IRA is? For those who don't know, it's basically a retirement account that you fund. And if you can, as much as until this is the best account, because what happens is this account grows over time. But when you eventually are able to take it out when you're 59 and a half years old, it sounds like a long time from now. Look, I'm 49 in 2 weeks, right? I never thought I'd be 59 anytime soon, but it's coming around the corner for me, and I might be able to get that money out soon, right? And alhamdulillah, it's grown quite a bit since then, you know? So if you keep doing this, it'll eventually grow over time. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that as well. So please make a promise to yourself, if you can, if you're working especially, invest in a Roth IRA, okay? And I'm going to tell you a little bit of what you can invest in and what you should invest in as well. And again, it's limited once income is too high. Index funds. Are you familiar with index funds? Okay. We'll go over a little bit about index funds as well. Index funds are a low-cost way of investing in the whole stock market or parts of the stock market. And it's kind of done where the ones that I will recommend kind of regularly monitor the top 20 or 30 and weight the index fund appropriately. So you're not going to get a lot of the small stocks, small market cap stocks in there. You're going to get the bigger ones in there, you know? And nothing's too big to fail, and I'll go over the returns of what the stock market has done over the last X amount of years. Also, index funds have broad diversification. When you have broad diversification, you end up with less possibility of anomalies and volatility. And when you're investing in index funds, you want to have a long-term mindset. This is not something you really are. I'm not talking about trading here. Trading is very different than investing. There's two different things. Trading is when you're like sitting on the brokerage account and you're going back and forth and you're trading daily or swing trading. Unless you're a really good trader, I wouldn't recommend it. I would just recommend set it and forget it. And doing boring always usually beats trading. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of what compounding is. Let's say there's a guy named Mr. Ahmed. Is there an Mr. Ahmed here, by the way? Is the last name Ahmed? No one? No? Okay, no Ahmed. Usually there's one Ahmed. Mr. Ahmed started working in 1985, a long time ago, and he saved and invested $400 a month in the stock market. He retired after 40 years. How much money did he have when he retired? $400 a month added up to $191,000, and then how much was that balance at the end of 40 years? Can anyone guess how much money he would have in 40 years if he did that? 1.2 million? Anyone else want to guess? $3 million. $400 a month. You know, and look, your salary inshallah will grow too, right? So it hurts $400 a month when you're young. It doesn't have to be 400. You know, I'm just putting a number out there, right? But that's a lot of money, you know. And obviously, $3 million is not the same as $3 million in 1985 money, right? But it's grown over time, and you've combated inflation, and it's grown considerably, you know. And we're just saying $400 a month. As your salary grows, inshallah, it'll be more than $400 a month, possibly, right? So you really want to take advantage of compounding early. And you can see here what that return looks like on a graph. See? Okay, so this is one index fund that I'm sharing with you. I'm not saying I'm recommending it because I don't want to say recommending, but this is called SPUS. This is a Sharia-compliant index fund. And I stole, with permission, these slides from my good friend Omar Khan. Does anyone know Sheikh Omar Khan? Yeah, he's a good friend of mine, and he's an expert in Islamic finance. By the way, 2 resources for you. If you want to know anything about Islamic finance, I guarantee you, go to any talk by Sheikh Omar Khan and also Joe Bradford. CD Joe Bradford is an amazing guy, and both Omar Khan and Joe Bradford are, I would say, the epitome of Islamic finance. We didn't have these type of guys 30 years ago that knew both Western finance, but also know the Islamic constraints and of Islamic finance, and they will guide you very well. So you can see here, the blue line actually is the fund, the SPUS, which is the Sharia-compliant S&P 500 fund, and you can see it actually beats the S&P 500 regularly over the last 5 years. And the S&P 500 invests in riba and gambling and alcohol and that kind of stuff. But SPUS does not. So that's the distinction between the two. There are a lot of halal exchange funds. The most popular ones are SPUS and HLAL. You can see they have a little bit of a fee, 0.45%, 0.5%. Those fees are not that bad, actually. They're obviously not. There are some funds that are not halal that give much less than this, but it's very worth it to use these funds. And you pay a little bit, but they make sure that there's no haram in those stocks that you're investing in. And these are legit companies. There's billions of dollars in each of these funds, and you can invest in them using your Schwab or Fidelity accounts. Are you guys familiar with this, or is this a surprise, this SPUS thing? You've heard something like it, right? But now you're going to open up a Roth account and you're going to invest some money in this, right? Yeah, inshallah, right? And again, and I'm not recommending this. It's education, but look, in a year it could go down 10%, but over the course of 20, 30 years, it's going to go up, inshallah. Another thing we can talk about is real estate. Right now, you guys are kind of young for really, big real estate investments, stuff like that. But inshallah, you guys are saving up maybe one day for a house you might want to have, or a condo or something like that. You may want to invest some money to save up for that too. And this kind of will help you if you're investing in the stock market. Inshallah, those gains will eventually lead to an opportunity for you guys to be able to use that money to invest in a house, inshallah. Yeah. Eventually, when you have, and when I created this, I had in mind more 35-year. I know there's a 21 to 35-year-old group, and it seems like a lot of younger guys and girls here, or ladies and brothers and sisters here. But inshallah, one day, you'll be able to invest in something like rentals. It costs a little bit more than just what I'm putting down here, but anyway, there's tax benefits to renting property, and it's another way to have long-term cash flow. Diversification. As you get older, some people might YOLO and try to put everything in crypto or something like that. Crypto is great in some ways. Obviously there's different opinions on it, whatever. But that's not going to be your way to, financial independence. You want to make sure that you have diverse things in different pockets. So don't put everything in one asset. You can. If you're doing Roth IRA, sure. Right now, it's good to start with stocks and index funds. Okay, individual stocks. Look, I would, if I was personally you, unless you're for some reason, or if your company is giving you stock options, that's great. You can stay in that too. That's okay. You don't really have a choice. They're paying you in stocks, right? But you want to have more of a diverse portfolio if you can, just in case something goes wrong. Like I showed you that company that crashed earlier. And then you want to have retirement fund, inshallah, like the Roth IRA, but also you can also have your own personal brokerage account as well. The personal brokerage account is not. Roth is tax free when you take it out. A personal brokerage account, you will be paying capital gains tax when you sell the stock, and that happens to everyone. And there's tax strategies involved to lowering your capital gains tax as you have more funds as well. Am I boring you guys? Doing okay? Yeah. Okay. We'll have Q&A after this in a little bit. Okay. Just letting you know. Okay. Okay. And then again, starting a business, that's another option too. And then obviously keep a little bit in cash, like I showed you before. Be curious, really important. Read, and I'm saying read, not just short form Reddit posts and, TikTok and all that kind of stuff. Read books. Find, books that you're interested in. Build skills as you're young right now. If I was your age right now, and I feel so old saying this, but like if I was your age, I would try to learn everything I can about AI right now, because that's the thing to do right now. Everyone's doing it, but not just learning how to use the tools, but if you have time, mess around with OpenClaw, mess around with Claude, do something fun with Gemini. I don't know, whatever. Like these tools are out there. I'm on these things all the time, trying to build things. if you have time to do some agent stuff, do some agent stuff. Anyone working with any of those tools right now? Yeah? What are you doing? What's your name? Ali. Assalamu alaikum. What are you doing with AI right now? All right, cool. Nice. Cool. Really cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think like I was involved when the internet was starting out. Right now, the new thing to do is get involved with something AI. Honestly, and then AI is great, but boring industries are great too. You can do very well running a plumbing company right now. You can do very well running a air conditioning company. Don't discount trades as well. Trades are a path to success as well. A lot of companies that were like for years doing plumbing or air conditioning or electrician stuff, they sold their companies after 20 years for X amount of dollars to private equity, and they're very happy and rich and retired right now. So there's a lot of paths to success, inshallah. And then if I were you guys also, I would think any industry or skill that you have, is there a way for me to monetize this, and make a business out of it? If you're a doctor, let's say, and you do surgery and you see some tools that you use regularly, hey, is there some way that I can create better tools? And I'm just talking to doctors, but like whatever, like in your industry, just keep your eyes open, and you never know. You can maybe talk to some investors, and they might be able to develop something with you. Okay, and then network. Oh yeah, ask questions, please. Whenever you're not sure about something or you want to learn more, don't be afraid to ask questions. There are people that you'll meet that are maybe smarter than you or know more about you in a certain industry. Don't feel scared to ask people questions. That's how we learn. We ask questions, right? So be curious and ask questions. Attend talks and forums, and get on Zoom calls or whatever, and try to attend, especially when they have trade shows and stuff like that. Attend things that you're interested in. You can learn a lot with those type of things. And then network physically in front of people, meet people, and but also follow smart people as well. Most of the success I've had is just because I've kept a network of intelligent people that are smarter than me. It's always better to be the least smart person, not least, but like at least like somewhere in the middle person in the room. You want to be able to be learning from people who are around you, and that's really important. Okay. And then understanding taxes, investing in business, it comes with time, but these are things that everyone should kind of learn a little bit more as they're working. If you're starting a business, very important, begin with the end in mind. If you're going to start something and say, oh yeah, hey, this is great, let's me and you, bro, start a company. Great, but imagine like 5 years from now, are you going to be able to divorce this friend of yours, as in your company, there's a lot of things that happen in the company, and when you're working with friends or family, things can happen. So just be wary of who you get into business with, but also just how are you going to get out of the business eventually? Are you going to sell? Are you going to be comfortable shutting it down? There's a lot that happens as you grow a company, and don't forget, markets change. One day, you're running a business in e-commerce or importing things from China and doing great. And the next thing you know, a president of the United States puts a 185% tariff on any goods that you import. These things happen. It happened to me, So, markets change, and just be ready to pivot if you have to, and just be ready. Things happen. You're building an AI tool, and all of a sudden, Claude releases a new AI version 2.6 of Opus, and then it kills your company. These things happen, unfortunately. It happened on Friday. Have you guys read the news at all about this? Yeah. On Friday, Claude released something new, and everyone's like, okay, now what? These things happen. Okay. So giving back. Let me tell you a little bit about my backstory. When I was building my company and I moved to Irvine for the first time, I met a few brothers this is before ICOI even started, and these are uncles in the community, and they found out through friends of my wife that, hey, Asim, used to be involved with the MSA at UCLA. We should get that guy to come and work with us to help build this masjid. And I was really excited. This sounds good. We didn't have a masjid in Irvine back then. And the uncle, one of the uncles, his name was Fareed Jaffrey, really nice guy. He looked me in the eye. He said, Asim, listen, we're building a masjid here. And the most important thing I'm going to tell you right now, any time, any money, any efforts that you put into building Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's house, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward you multiple times. You will see it. And because he's coming from this guy was an uncle, like I'm talking to you. He's one of those uncles who are like, oh my God, this guy, I can't believe this guy's done this and that. It was because of his tawakkul that he got to that level. And I'm telling you from my heart, I could not have gotten to where I am if it wasn't for the time I spent working at this masjid. I spent about 10 years working here in various capacities here, and it was some of the best experiences of my life. I cannot recommend anything more than working for somewhat in some capacity for a masjid or an Islamic organization, giving some volunteer hours. You can dunya chase all you want, but your heart's not going to be satisfied until you have akhirah. That's I trademarked that. I just made that up, okay? But I'm telling you, this is real life stuff. I'm sure some of you guys do some good work. And this is you're getting ajr just being here, mashallah. But this is important. Masjid, volunteering somewhere, doing the protests for our brothers and sisters of Gaza, all that stuff, so important. And then continue to give your sadaqah and zakah where it's needed. Okay, so and then one of the reasons why we want to be financially successful, inshallah, is that we as a community gain political and social reach. And you can see that if it wasn't for the hard work of some of the people behind the scenes, we wouldn't have gotten people like Mamdani elected. We would have gotten Ilhan Homer. We wouldn't have Rashida in office. These things are important too. We may not agree with every single thing people do, but it's important that we have Muslims in these higher up offices and things, and even smaller ones too. My good friend Haris Sayed is a great guy. He just got appointed. I forget what the word is, but it's like one position below judge in LA County. I forget what the name it is. He's gonna kill me. I don't remember what it's called. But anyway, he's wearing a robe and everything like a judge now. And he's making judge type decisions in Los Angeles County. And he's a great brother. So it's an attorney. These are things that we want to do. We want to get involved and get into places where we haven't necessarily been in the last few generations. And I see it happening. I see it more and more. So if you guys have political inclinations, get involved in some sort of way to support candidates that are Muslim that are trying to get into the political realm, or even like it doesn't have to be politics. It could be like in a social organization to support each other. That's really important. Okay, moving on. What else do I have here? Am I done here? No. Clicker's not working. Oh, I got it. It worked. Okay. Biggest mistakes. Okay, so as we are progressing in our career and our financial life, I guess, be wary of these things. Lifestyle inflation and keeping up with the Joneses, right? Just because your friend bought a new car does not mean you need to buy a new car. Okay? If you can't afford a new car, don't buy a new car. Probably don't buy a new car. Actually, I mean, unless you're like really doing like crazy well. Used cars are great. And all the depreciation has gone off the used car, and no one will tell the difference that you driving a new or used car. Honestly, that's where it kind of gets you when you're living below above your means. And then not investing. That's another thing. Just letting money sit in cash. I've made that mistake a few times where I'm just too busy. Oh, it's too hard to set. You can automatically sweep from your checking account especially if you're getting a salary, you can sweep it directly into a brokerage account, and you can automatically invest a little bit a month into SPUS or whatever, one of these index funds that you like. Okay. Um, Index, like, I don't know if I went over the S&P thing, like, but for the last X amount of years, the S&P 500 has averaged, I think, 7 to 10% growth. That's crazy, actually. Um, so I definitely want to do that. Also, not saving, spending all your money. You should allocate definitely a certain amount that you're saving if you can. Again, I'm speaking from someone that, alhamdulillah, I'm in a different position as you guys now because I'm older, but keep this in mind for the next 20, 30 years. Chasing trends, that's an important thing. Just because something's hot now doesn't mean that it's, and I mentioned AI, but like AI is a trend, but it's something that's going to be important. But chasing trends like, the latest meme coin or something like that, that's not what it's going to make you rich. It's not boring, definitely wins the race in these things. Being the turtle, not the hare. Okay. And then waiting too long, you should act fast, act quick on things. Okay. Okay, so your 20s and 30s, I imagine everyone's turning 30 here, yeah? No one's 40s maybe, just me? Okay. Learning, most important thing. Learn all the time, from the cradle to the grave, learn something all the time, You should try to be reading a book all the time, not just looking at Reddit, Read a book. Find some books that you like. You'll learn from books, It doesn't... I don't care if you read fiction too, but read some nonfiction, something that interests you that maybe will help your career, help your education, and keep doing it. Make it a consistent habit every day. Building skills, marketable skills. Find something that you're good at, or that you want to do, and do it. Maybe there's not all certifications are great, but maybe there's something that is marketable in your area. Maybe, like, let's say if you're a software guy, learning Python really well or something like that. I don't know. And maybe if you're like in the medical field, learning how to use a certain tool set well. These are all things that are marketable, and it'll help you grow. I mentioned investing earlier already. Taking calculated risks. Now there could be a time where okay, I could spend X amount of time developing a business or something like that, right? And it's not going to make me go broke, you know, or I can invest this much time and a little bit of money in something. Why not? You're young. Why not try it? If it's not going to kill you financially, for sure, if it's just your time is not your time is worth less than your money right now, right? Eventually, your time becomes worth more than your money, right? Because at my age, I'm running out of time. You guys aren't running out of time yet, inshallah, right? I'm running out of time, right? Obviously, they're not making time anymore. They stopped making time a long time ago, right? But it's harder when it's my age. When you're in your age, you have the time. But alhamdulillah, eventually you'll get to the stage where you have more money, and then time's more of an issue, right? Okay, and then I already mentioned serving community. That's important. Okay, so practical next steps. What are we going to do? Number one, we're going to open a Roth IRA, right? If you don't have one, you're going to open one hopefully this week, inshallah. Two, if you can, automate investing. This can be kind of scary for people, What it does, it sweeps money directly from your checking account into this new account at Schwab or Fidelity. If you're not comfortable doing it, okay, just make sure you do it manually, once a month, and put a little bit every... Now, look, you cannot time the... Now, I'll tell you right now, time in the market is better than timing the market. You understand what that means? That means that, look, if I'm going... I can't wait for... Well, maybe you can these days for our president to say something and the market tanks 30%. That happens, But you can't time over the next 30 years. If you look at the bumps, they get a little smoother on a graph over time than they are like up and down, basically, right? So you want to keep consistent and keep investing, inshallah. Okay, and then the other thing is track your spending. I use something called Empower. Are you guys familiar with Empower? Empower is a tool. It's a website, Empower Retirement. It's free, and basically you can link all of your accounts to it, and it'll kind of show you what your net worth looks like. So you can put your bank account, your credit card, your some manual things. Let's say you own a motorcycle, put the motorcycle's net worth in there, whatever you have, and then you can kind of see your financial picture. You'll say, oh, well, look, I'm worth $10,000 total, whatever it is, and you'll see it grow eventually, inshallah. Um, but it's a good way to track where your finances are. Empower, it's called, and that's the way I track my stuff. So track your spending from it too. It'll give you a nice little chart to say, hey, oh man, it'll tell you, hey, you spent this X amount of groceries last month. You usually don't spend this much on groceries this month. Haha, it's Ramadan. That's what we did. So, but it's a good thing to do. And then read one finance book, like I told you at least. These are two finance books that I recommend. One's called Bogleheads. Bogleheads basically is a kind of a philosophy of how to invest regularly in index funds. And then there's another book called Simple Path to Wealth. It's a really simple book on how to, inshallah, gain monetarily. And then I mentioned Sheikh Umar Khan and Joe Bradford. I didn't have enough room to put Joe Bradford, but both of them I hold in high regard. And then, like I said before, serve somewhere. So do some volunteer work if you can, inshallah. Okay. Next slide. Okay, and then final message, inshallah, build wealth, build character, and build community. I think these are the most important things. Yeah? All right, and then next slide. I think I got a few more in there. Okay, forget the disclaimer, we already talked about that. All right, questions I get all the time. Should I start a business or focus on a career? Unless you have the financial capabilities with your parents or something like that, and they're like, oh yeah, hey, YOLO, go try to start a business, that's fine. If you have the means to be able to, do that, that's great. A lot of us cannot do that, so we got to spend some time, nights and weekends, trying to develop a business. If you want to do that, that's fine. You should definitely. But if you can, the path to real success financially is one of the main paths is to run a business somehow or other. So I encourage a lot of you to be entrepreneurial minded if possible. Then how much should I invest? Like I said before, try to keep 3 to 6 months if you can on hand in savings, and everything else try to put into some sort of saving, into some sort of investment, inshallah. Okay. Next slide, please. I think it's this Q&A. This is, you can take a picture of this if you need it. You can contact me. My LinkedIn is not on here, but I think it's, you can find me. You'll find me on LinkedIn. It's not that hard. And that should be it, I think. Q&A. Guys, ask me anything. I'm here. I've got time. Anything you want, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Okay. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. But you were talking about the business you started at first, like import-export business. So what are the challenges did you face at that time? I know it's very different now, the communication and everything, but what are the three most challenges you faced and how did you overcome?
Yeah. Import business. So I'll say the challenge now is tariffs, right? You don't know whether you're going to be paying X now or margins, right? Okay, I'll say another thing. Margins, making sure your margins are high. I like high margin goods. It's not always, especially when you first start. It's very hard to import in bulk right away unless you have funds to do so. So you want to keep your margins and your overhead. That's the most important thing I would say. So overhead is basically how much money is not a variable cost in your business, right? So let's say that you have to pay, some sort of software fee or some sort of fee that's regular. You have to make sure that your margins can cover all those fees as well as just the cost of your goods, right? So if I'm selling something for $10 and then, it costs $5, that's you think you have $5 profit, but you don't because you got to pay taxes on that. You got to pay maybe utilities and rent and software and whatever else and employees. It compounds over time. I'm just talking about. I mean, that's like a bigger business, right? But if it's just you can do your sweat is your own sweat is worth something too, right? So don't forget. But eventually, you do have to put in a little bit of sweat equity early on. That's important. And you can or can't count that when you're developing a business and bootstrapping your business in the beginning. As far as importing goes, if you're interested in importing, you can talk to Alibaba is a good way to find sources online to get things. The only problem with importing right now is very difficult because and that's one of the reasons why I exited too. Is like like let's say this Palestine bracelet thing. If I were to sell this, I could buy this on Temu for like 10 cents, and it'll be here tomorrow. It's like it's very hard to buy things in bulk these days. Unless you're like a super crazy designer. Okay, next question. Yes, brother. Right here. How does a Muslim step into a real estate game? You need capital. You're going to need some capital, right? Or partners, right? So you're going to need to you're going to need to get enough money for a down payment, and then you're going to have to do a projection on how much, whether it's going to be a rental property or it's going to be a flip, but it's capital intensive, and you're going to have some money. You can't just walk into real estate with nothing. You're going to have to, or you get involved in a construction project and do some of the parts of it. But real estate is one of the things that unless you have capital or you have a network, that's one of the harder things of getting into. That's why I didn't really mention real estate too much. You're going to need, and it doesn't have to be. One of the things is it doesn't necessarily have to be in California. Just in real estate, you can go out of state or go to the country also. The returns in California are amazing, though. That's the only difference. Over time, California real estate's like gold, right? If you go anywhere else, like let's say Texas, some people buy property in Texas or other places. You don't get the appreciation that you do in California. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's a little more capital intensive. Yeah. The brother right here. Right here. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Related to that question as well, in terms of real estate, what sort of like net worth do you think is a good time to start thinking about real estate, especially here in California where it's super expensive?
Yeah.
You mentioned getting together with several other people. That's a good idea that I haven't thought
You can,
about before.
yeah, that's a possibility. So net worth, I don't want to see. You have to be able to sleep at night. That's one of the things. Like, even at my age, at 40, whatever, 9, you need to be able to sleep at night. Everyone's tolerance is different. I can't give you a number for net worth because it's very individualized, but you're going to need, a few $100,000 net worth without an issue just to start something like that, really, unless you're like going into a very small, or you're going with a lot of people. Oh, you can invest in real estate trusts actually. So that's an option. Yeah, that's another option. Don't forget that. So one of those slides I showed earlier showed some halal real estate investing trusts, REITs, REITs they're called, right? You can invest in those, but again, you should look at the history of them and see some of them are good, some of them are bad. So like when COVID happened, do I have time by the way? Am I talking too much? Okay. When COVID happened, like all the commercial real estate tanked, right? Things happen, right? So I mean, I'm not saying it will happen again, but markets change, things happen, right? So, but you can invest in those too. That's an option to invest in real estate. And okay, guys, I forgot to tell you guys, this is very important. Oh my God, zakat. We all have to pay zakat, right? How much? And again, this is a research position by Sheikh Umar Joe Bradford, and I highly recommend this book on Amazon. It's called Simple Zakat Guide, I think it's called, by Joe Bradford. Please, if you can, pick this up. I think it's called Simple Guide to Zakat. I think that's what it's called. I highly recommend it because a lot of times you may be overpaying or underpaying zakat. You don't even know about it. So I'll give you an example. If I owned 10 shares of Tesla stock, and let's say the total amount was 10,000. I don't know what they call it. Let's say it's 10,000. I own $10,000 of Tesla stock. How much do you think I owe at the end of the year, zakat wise, on that stock? Guess. Nope. There you go. Yeah, good. That's good. So most people don't know that, right? Some people will just pay 2.5% of the $10,000, right? Which you're paying too much, And I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay zakat, right? Because we are I'm not saying you should underpay zakat, but you should realize that you are technically a partner in that company, and you're only supposed to pay on the assets of the company, not the liabilities of the company, right? So if you own, you have risk, right? So you don't need to pay the full 2.5%. And that guide will tell you more. And Sheikh Omar Khan also will tell you exactly how much you need to pay for that kind of stuff, right? So the idea is you pay your zakah, but you also pay it intelligently, right? And that extra amount, you could do sadaqah with that. You can give it to the masjid. You can also give it to charity too. You can give it to any Islamic relief or whatever organization you want to give it to, Gaza or whatever. But just be intelligent. Remember, because our pillars are prayer, obviously shahada, prayer, zakah. That's how important it is, right? So we have to make sure it's an obligation and an act of worship. When we give zakah, make sure you give the niyyah that you're worshiping, right? Okay, next question. We can follow up. Yeah, go ahead.
Someone brought up. It's okay. Someone brought up.
Yes. This is my specialty. Actually. Yeah, 100%. 100%. So what this brother asked, which is a really good question, and once you start investing in stocks, and let's say you have, like I said, you have this stock, you bought the Tesla stock at $10,000, right? And now it's at $20,000, let's say. I'm saying Tesla because we don't like Elon, but I'm just saying the Tesla. The company came up, right? So let's say you bought it 10,000, now it's 20,000, right? So you have capital gain of how much? 10 grand, right? If I were to sell that stock today, I would have to pay capital gains tax of 30% or the high tax bracket. Let's just say you're the highest tax bracket, right? 30% to federal government and 8% it's 20% to federal government and 8% to California, right? So right off the bat, you're going to lose $2,800, right? That sucks, right? And let's say you had to write a check to, some sort of uplift charity, let's say, right? Instead of writing the check to uplift charity, what you can do is you can donate $2,800 of stock, or X amount of stock to uplift instead. So now what happens is you have, I'm just saying 2,500. Let's say you donate 2,500. Now you don't have to realize the tax on that. Eventually, that $10,000, you will give that money in stock to uplift instead, right? And what happens is you can just immediately buy with your own cash $2,500 more of that stock. So your cost basis goes down, right? So you end up paying less tax and less money goes to the U.S. government and less money goes to other places you don't want to go. So I highly recommend, as you get money, think about always paying your zakah in stock if you can. And there are things that you can do. You can start something called a donor advised fund. There's a company called Daffy, DAFFY, where you can donate a stock directly. Let's say it's hard, you want to give a little bit to care, you want to give a little bit to uplift, you want to give a little bit to access, whatever, but you only have one stock, or a little bit of stock, right? You can't give all of it like that. What you can do is you can take that stock, donate it to this thing called Daffy, get the 501c3 donation or whatever, and then it's a nice interface like Robinhood. You can say, okay, out of that stock, they sell the stock right away, and you can say, hey, I want to give $100 from that stock sale to Islamic Relief. I want to give 100 to Access. I want to give 100 to ICOI, all that stuff. It'll make it so you can donate a little bit to each organization. So you can donate to 10 organizations if you wanted to with that one or two stock, basically, right? It's called Daffy. I highly recommend you look into that, okay? Daffy, DAFFY. It's a really neat interface. It's a reputable company. There's very low fees too. It's almost negligible. It's harder, honestly, to donate stocks to 3 or 4 different organizations. It's much easier to just donate all of it to Daffy, and then you advise Daffy to give it to whatever organization you want, right? And they'll kind of check. It's a really neat interface. I'll show you real quick. I'll just put it up here real quick. I have it right here on my phone. So I have the Daffy app up, and I'm going to donate. And look here, it says right here, I'm going to give Sabeel. So I can give it to Sabeel right from here, and I'd say I want to give $18 to Sabeel, or not 18, but whatever you want to put. I push next, and it'll donate to that charity, and it will write it, and they'll get a check within a week, you know, and that'll come out of your stock basically that you already donated over there. And you could do like this, set this up for ICOI is on there, all of the massages are on there. It's very easy to do. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, you can. Mm-hmm. Not if your income. So it's a charitable donation, right? So the charitable donation gets offset off your income, not dollar for dollar, but like you would be giving even a check. It would be very similar to that, you know. So you do get a charitable donation for it, and that gets offset against your income as well. Exactly. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. No, because it's a 501c3 organization. They don't. So they don't have to pay taxes. So this is a way to circumvent that. Another thing is if you have money, let's say like you did really good this year, right? Let's say you did amazing year this year, and you want to upfront give more eventually, and you want to lower your taxes this year for some reason, right? So let's say you give $10,000 this year directly instead of like if for the next 3 years, let's say you had to give $2,500 a year for the next 4 years in zakat. Let's just say, right? But you did really good this year, and you want the tax deduction this year because you made a lot of money this year. You can donate $10,000 this year to Daffy, right? And when you do that, you can also keep the money in Daffy in index funds in Daffy actually. So Daffy has a portfolio management tool where you can invest in halal, SPUS, gold, whatever you want to put in there, and it'll grow over time in Daffy for the next 4 years or X amount of time. You can grow a huge fund over time if you want to over there, and then every year you don't have to donate next year at all from your own finances. You just donate from your Daffy account, and you can give $2,500 a year from your Daffy account, and that'll grow over time. It'll be $2,500. The next year could be $2,800 because it grew 7% or whatever, 10%, right? Yeah, let me go to the back of the.
Or you have to transfer from.
Daffy's like a brokerage account. It's not a brokerage account. It's a donor-advised fund. It's different. So you can set something up called like Abdurrahman Foundation. You know, it's like a name basically, right? But you have an account there, and you advise Daffy to give however you want. Make sense? Okay, sisters. I'm sorry. I'm ignoring some of the sisters. Any questions over here? Yes, sister. No, we're talking about stocks on this. Yeah, you could give income cash to Daffy too, but you don't really need to. You can just give it directly. You don't need to go through Daffy for that. Yeah. Anything else, sisters? No? Okay. Bro, yes. Mhm. Yeah. So that's a question for Joe Bradford and Omar Khan. I'm not qualified to give a fatwa on that, honestly. Uh, I wouldn't even want to actually give an opinion on that because I'm not really qualified to do so. But I can tell you kind of what I heard, but you should go to them actually about this, is that if you don't have a choice, you kind of have to do what you can, basically, and that's your niyyah to do, I think. But you have to talk to them about that because I'm not a mufti, so I can't do that. Yes, brother. Yes. Okay, so marketable skills are for twofold. Number one is to make yourself look better when you go from one company to another, or even within your company. That's important, so that will help you scale. And then if you want to get a marketable skill that you can build something on your own, yeah, I don't know what level it would be, I mean, whatever you're curious about, do a deep dive. I think a deeper dive, being more pointy, is better, in certain situations, like if you're doing AI stuff, like maybe get really good with doing some sort of agent stuff. I don't know. I'm not in the weeds enough in AI to know a little bit about that. But I would say more time you spend, more time you build, and more time you automate weird stuff. These days, it's amazing what you can do. I feel so old because I can't. I have not even tapped the surface of what you can do with that kind of stuff. You know, like that stuff with OpenClaw looks really interesting. I would love to do stuff like that if I had time. Yes, sister, in the back. Okay, yeah, this is really important. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one thing I do very well, which I've done very well, is hire people. I've hired so many people in the day, and I've gone through resumes. And I will tell you right now, my process as a small employer. Now, the bigger employers have full automation, right? So they will weed you by keyword and stuff like that, right? So what I would do if I was you, I would take my resume, whatever resume you have right now, I would feed it into all four of the AI tools, Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, whatever, and say, hey, this is my resume. I want to make it look good for when I submit things to Indeed and LinkedIn and Handshake and all these tools. Find any problems with it and help me add any keywords that may help me circumvent the screens at these companies, right? Because what happens is, let's say there's a job for, I don't know, machine learning that's opened up, right? And you know you're just getting in the industry and you have nothing that has machine learning on your resume, right? Maybe you did some course in college you forgot about that you learned some machine learning, right? At least, no, the thing is, you can't lie on a resume. Never lie on a resume. You have to have done what you can. You have to be able to talk about it, right? But maybe you took a course in machine learning and you never, maybe it's important, right? If you don't have that keyword in your resume, you may not get screened for that thing. Or maybe there's some language or something like that. I mean, I'm only talking about tech stuff, but let's say finance, right? Let's say it's looking for someone who has Salesforce experience or something like that, right? You may have had some experience and you forgot to put that on your resume. You're going to miss that job just because you don't have that keyword on your screen. So does that help you any? Does that make sense? Yeah. Let me just finish up one more thing. Check your resume for grammar and spelling errors. I immediately, the way I'd go through Indeed is I'd look at a resume, and if it's not formatted properly, I swipe. If I find one spelling error, swipe. If I find one grammatical error, swipe. If I find anything that shows me that you are not putting every effort into your resume, swipe. Because a resume is a reflection of you on paper or on a PDF. That's all I see. That's the first thing I see. Make it standard, make it legible, and make sure you're not. It doesn't. At probably your age, you don't need a 3-page resume or something. I think one suffices, but I'm not sure what stage of career you're at right now. But you don't need. I need to see things simply and quickly, and I will swipe and then most people will, most hiring managers will. Yes, sister. I think so. Work experience matters a lot. I don't know exactly what a company might be looking for a project manager for that, but I think management skills of some sort and putting that on your resume helps. Again, like you have this generation, you have every tool at your fingertips. I would just throw it in the chat GPT, throw it into, hey, look, I want to apply for this position. Can you help me craft my resume for this? And maybe if you're applying for project manager positions, have a separate resume for a project manager, have a separate resume for this, because if you do a blanket resume for every single position, you have different types of positions you're applying for, they're not the same. They're looking for different things. You might need 3 resumes, yeah, it's possible, And then my process when I have hired people, I would, number one, once they got through the screen, is this helping you guys? Yeah. Once they got through the screen, I will immediately go to their social media. Immediately, I'll go to their social media, like hands down. If it's a public account, I will make sure I go to social media. If I see something screwy in the social media, if they were, because it's public, If I see something that I don't necessarily agree with, if I think it won't make him a good worker or her a good worker, I probably won't hire them. I will never discriminate on, race or any of that kind of stuff that you cannot discriminate about. But I will if I see something unprofessional. Like again, it's one thing to be having fun and stuff like that, but if it's not clean as far as like, you know, people. I mean, inshallah, this room is like there's a lot of drug paraphernalia and stuff like that online. Like, don't put that on social media. I mean, people do this kind of stuff, right? To act tough or something like that. You don't need that on your public social media, right? So keep your social media clean. And I'll just probably do a Google search too to see what comes up. That's like the easiest thing I do. And then people do background searches and stuff like that too. But smaller companies don't always do that, but bigger companies do. Make sense? Yes, sister. Yeah.
At what point you involved investors and where you found investors?
Yeah, so we were very unique. We bootstrapped our complete company. My wife and I I asked my dad and my mom, hey, we're going to start this company. Can you give us $1,000? And my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, my wife asked, hey, we're going to start this company. Do you want to invest $1,000? And that's not, I mean, alhamdulillah, our parents had $1,000, right? It was not that much money, like, yeah, it sounds great, And with that $1,000 and like my income that I had in my job, I would put a little bit in the business, and we did it without investors. So alhamdulillah, we did it without investors, right? And we grew it from little bit to little bit to little bit to a large company. It took a long time, 25 years, but still, it's possible to do it yourself. But there are some businesses where you need a little bit more capital-intensive things. You just have to be very wary with who you partner with, or who you're getting investing from, and what the deal is, and be really careful about your contract and stuff like that. There are these days, there's a lot of business you can start on your own, and you could probably do it with very little money possibly too, You could start small, start one small business, and you can roll that into another one, and you can keep building businesses, There are investors like me who actually want to invest in people, Like I'm looking for a team of doing projects too. If you want to have an investment a business entrepreneur club, heck, I'd be involved. I would love to help fund some of you guys if you guys have good ideas. I wouldn't mind being a Shark Tank type guy, and I do shoot people down a lot though, unfortunately. If I've been around the block enough where I know something's not going to be profitable. So, yeah, does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, brother. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The thing is, like, news is so hype, and especially I don't trust anyone at any investment bank. When they, you read an article, oh, J.P. Morgan Fund says this about silver. Silver's going to go up like X amount in the next 100. They're doing that because they want people to invest because they have a position in silver. So that try not to fall for that. If it's something that has been time tested and like I said, like these index funds like SPUS or gold, I guess too, right? Right now, gold's pretty high though. I would I would I would invest a little bit of a time and then doing it during dips too, but have a long-term horizon, on those things. Definitely have a long-term horizon. Don't think you're gonna trade it and do well. I mean, you can trade those, and they're pretty safe. No, not silver. Silver's not safe right now, but gold is. Gold will eventually be okay. I think it's about 5,100 right now or something like that, right? But the more you're like involved in learning stuff, the better. I don't have a solution for you to say, oh yeah, trust this guy. I don't trust anyone but myself, honestly. But that also means I make a lot of mistakes too. And the mistakes are all on me. I would read that book that I told you, Bogleheads is a good book. A Simple Path to Wealth. There's a lot of good advice on there. Better advice than I would probably give on that. Idris, yeah, go ahead. Idris, right? Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, not retire. So let's talk about 3 accounts, okay, or let's talk 4 accounts, right? Okay, this is very important. I'm glad I brought this up. You brought 401k. Who has a 401k of their company? Okay, 401k. Does your 401k match? It does. Like your company will say, "Oh, we do 401k matching." If your 401k, make sure that you give as much as you can. But you should max it if you can. It's free money for you. Don't forget that, right? So if they say they match up to X percent, you put in up to X percent in your 401k. You're getting free, you're giving yourself a raise, basically, right? They're giving you free money. Why wouldn't you take it? You know, if you're eventually going to save for your retirement, do it this way, you know, because that way is free. That's better than most of the other methods I told you. So if you have 401k matching, give that first. Your company's going to give you, because you're going to get an extra you're going to get double of what you normally get, right? So if I'm going to put $1,000 in my retirement, they're going to give me another $1,000. There's no better deal out there. That's the best deal, you know. So do that for sure. Secondly, if you leave your company and you're going to go to another company, do not ever cash out your 401k until you're like 59 and a half. Roll it over, you know. It's called a rollover. You can roll over into an IRA, right? Make sure you do that. Do not cash it out, because if you cash it out, you pay taxes on it right then. It's a lot of money, and you're losing all that capital gains over time. So please do not always roll over your 401k. Okay. So there's 4 accounts. We're talking about 401k. There's a Roth IRA, which is a tax. You pay tax first, right? It's not tax deferred. You've already paid the taxes on it, right? So you will never have to pay taxes on that money. That's the beauty of a Roth IRA, right? Then there's a regular IRA, which is a retirement vehicle similar to a 401k, but that's your own private one basically you set up. That's tax deferred. So it's taxable actually. So you will end up paying taxes on that. You don't ever pay taxes on a Roth. You do pay taxes on an IRA, but there are ways to put money in an IRA that will save you taxes, right? So that's an option if you don't have a 401k. And the other option is a standard brokerage account. Standard brokerage account, you're saving for, one day you're saving for a house, something you need like in 10, 15 years. Put it in an IRA, in a brokerage account, put it in an index fund, and it'll grow over time. And eventually, inshallah, you'll have money to put a down payment on a house or something like that. You know, that's the idea. You don't have access to those retirement accounts, though. Okay. I think are we going over time now? We're done. Yeah, cool. Okay. All right. Anything else? One more question. I'll do one more, brother. Buying businesses. Yeah, I mean, buying businesses is great, but you need to do your research. Every business is different, unless you're a real, everything about the finances and you're a financial expert and you can determine, if they have good financials and you know it, they're keeping up with their books and everything else too. There's just so many things that can be out there, that they could have some crazy, lien on some property. They could have, I'm not discouraging you, but there's a lot of things you need to look at. Okay. And I don't think that I can really advise on that right now unless I have to see that exact deal, I guess you could say. All right. Everything else? Good? Jazakum Allahu khairan. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.